The massive assembly hall on Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 847 different species filled the circular chamber that stretched nearly a mile across. Some delegates floated in special atmosphere tanks, others perched on crystalline structures, and many more sat in chairs designed for their unique body shapes. Chancellor Zareth of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the central podium. His forearms spread wide as he called for silence. His blue-scaled face showed the strain of the past few months. Behind him, a holographic display showed the outer rim of the galaxy, where red warning zones marked the areas that had gone dark. "Fellow beings of the Galactic Council," Zareth began, his voice carrying to every corner through advanced translation devices. "We face the greatest threat in our recorded history. The entities we call Void Wraiths have consumed 17 star systems in the past month alone. Our fleets cannot touch them. Our weapons pass through them like smoke." A low murmur ran through the assembly. The insectoid Vesh delegates clicked their mandibles anxiously. The plant-like Verdani swayed their leaf-crowned heads in distress. Even the proud warrior race of Corthex shifted uncomfortably in their massive stone chairs. "We must act as one," Zareth continued. "Every species, every fleet, every weapon we possess must be combined into a single force. Only together can we hope to drive back this darkness." In the back sections of the assembly, 3 humans sat quietly. Ambassador Elena Vasquez wore a simple, black diplomatic uniform that looked plain next to the ornate robes and armor worn by other delegates. Her companions, military advisor Chen and science officer Rodriguez, flanked her with equally understated presence. Most delegates had brought dozens of advisors, honor guards, and support staff. The Altarian delegation alone numbered over 200 beings. The humans looked almost lost in their small section, but Elena seemed perfectly comfortable with their modest representation. Zareth's gaze swept across the assembly as he called out each major military power. The Thrakari Imperium pledges 50,000 warships. The Crystalline Harmony offers their reality-bending technologies. The Overmind Coalition brings their psychic warfare specialists. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy stood to pledge their forces. The Korthic war chief Groktar slammed his massive fist on his chair and roared his species' battle cry, promising 10 million warriors. The ethereal beings of the Astral Collective flickered in and out of visible spectrum to show their agreement. And finally, Zareth said, turning toward the human section, "We call upon our friends from the Terran Federation. Though their numbers are small, human tactical innovation has proven valuable in past conflicts." Elena stood slowly. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of eyes, optical sensors, and other sensory organs focused on the small human woman. She cleared her throat and spoke in a clear, calm voice. "The Terran Federation appreciates the Council's confidence in our abilities," she said. "However, after careful consideration, we must respectfully decline to participate in this joint operation." The words hit the assembly like a physical blow. Several delegates actually fell backward in their seats. The crystal beams of the Harmony began ringing with discordant tones of confusion. Even the usually composed Overmind psychic emanations spiked with shock, causing sensitive species to clutch their heads. Furthermore, Elena continued as if she had not just shattered the unity of the galaxy's greatest powers. "Effective immediately, all Terran Federation vessels will withdraw from Council-coordinated zones. Our military advisors and technical specialists will return to human space within 72 hours. Chancellor Zareth's 4 arms trembled. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Ambassador Vasquez, surely there has been some misunderstanding. The fate of the entire galaxy hangs in the balance. Your species has always been reliable." Elena's expression remained neutral. "There is no misunderstanding, Chancellor. Earth's position is final. But why? The shout came from Commander Threx of the Regalian Defense Corps, his normally disciplined voice breaking with desperation. Humans have fought beside us for 3 centuries. Your people died defending our worlds. What has changed? Elena looked across the assembly, meeting the gazes of beings whose ancestors had shared battlefields with her species. She saw confusion, fear, and the first stirrings of anger in their expressions. Nothing has changed, she said simply. That is precisely the problem. Without another word, Elena turned and walked toward the exit. Chun and Rodriguez fell in step beside her, their faces as unreadable as their ambassadors. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the suddenly silent chamber. Behind them, the assembly erupted into chaos. The usually dignified Altarian delegate jumped onto his chair, screaming accusations of betrayal. The Vesh Collective's hive mind communication filled the air with angry buzzing. Even the peaceful Zenthari philosophers raised their voices in protest. "This is madness," roared Groktar, his massive frame shaking with rage. "Without human tactical support, how do we coordinate attacks across different time zones and physics paradigms?" High Counselor Veltar of the Overmind Coalition sent out a wave of psychic energy that translated her thoughts directly into the minds of all present. Our strategic planning databases have human-derived algorithms integrated into every major system. How do we even begin without them? As Elena reached the chamber doors, Chancellor Zareth called out one last desperate plea. "Ambassador, at least tell us what we have done wrong. What offense has the Council committed against humanity?" Elena paused at the threshold and looked back at the chaotic assembly. For a brief moment, her neutral expression softened into something that might have been sadness. "You have done nothing wrong, Chancellor," she said. "You have simply become exactly what you were meant to be. And now so must we." The door sealed behind the human delegation with a soft hiss, leaving behind 844 species to face the darkness. Without the one ally, they had never realized they could not live without Dot in the assembly hall. Emergency sessions began immediately. War councils formed and dissolved in minutes as delegates realized how many of their most basic systems relied on human input. Communication networks struggled without human technicians, who somehow made incompatible alien technologies work together. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades ground to a halt as other species discovered they had forgotten how to navigate through the chaos zones that humans had always handled. Outside the station's massive viewports, the first reports began arriving. Void Wraith activity had tripled in sectors where human ships had already begun their withdrawal. It was as if the entities could sense the change, growing bolder as some invisible barrier fell away. The galaxy's greatest alliance was coming apart, and the darkness was closing in. 3 days after the human withdrawal, the first major system failure struck the Altarian defense grid, the massive network of automated defense stations that protected the core worlds of the Altarian Republic had operated flawlessly for 200 years. Now, warning lights flashed red across every control center as the system's coordination protocols collapsed. Chief Engineer Calathon stared at his displays in disbelief. His six-fingered hands danced across holographic controls, but nothing responded correctly. The defense platforms were firing at random intervals, some targeting empty space, while others remained silent as debris fields drifted past their sensors. "Sir," called his assistant, "the coordination matrix is requesting human clearance codes for every defensive action. The system won't operate without human oversight approval." Calathon's throat sacs deflated in defeat. 2 centuries ago, human engineers had helped design the grid's adaptive response systems. Over time, those systems had evolved to rely on human intuition to resolve conflicts between logical but contradictory defensive options. No one had realized the dependency had grown so deep. Similar failures cascaded across the galaxy. On the trade world of Nexus 7, cargo shipments worth trillions of credits sat stranded in orbital warehouses. The complex routing systems that managed interspecies commerce had developed around human mediators who could somehow negotiate between wildly different cultural and economic standards. Captain Vexhai of the Regelian Merchant Marine stood before a wall of frozen displays showing trade routes that spanned half the galaxy. Red warning symbols marked pathway after pathway as his navigation computers struggled with calculations they had always delegated to human specialists. How did they do it? Vexhai muttered to his first officer. Look at this route through the Maelstrom cluster. The math says it should take 43 days to navigate safely. Our human advisors always found paths that cut it down to 12 days. Our computers are calling their routes impossible. His first officer pulled up archived navigation logs from human-guided ships. The data made no sense. Human navigators seemed to ignore standard safety protocols, taking shortcuts through gravitational anomalies and dark matter storms that should have destroyed their ships. Yet their success rate was nearly perfect. Maybe they were just lucky, the first officer suggested. For 300 years? Vexhai's mandibles clicked in frustration. That's not luck. That's something else entirely. The military implications became clear when the proud Thrakari Imperium attempted their first major fleet exercise without human tactical advisors. The exercise was a disaster. Their elite commanders, trained in the finest military academies in the galaxy, found their carefully planned maneuvers falling apart when faced with simulated chaos. General Mordek watched his fleet formations crumble on the tactical display. His ships moved with perfect precision, executing textbook strategies with flawless timing. They should have won easily against the computer-simulated enemy forces. Instead, they suffered devastating losses. The simulation threw unpredictable variables at them: rapid equipment failures, sudden asteroid storms, communication breakdowns that turned coordinated attacks into confused melees. The Thrakari forces, trained for perfect execution of logical plans, had no idea how to adapt when everything went wrong at once. Our human advisors always warned us about this, Mordek admitted to his staff. They said our plans were too perfect, too predictable. We thought they were being modest about their own contributions. His aide pulled up combat records from previous campaigns where humans had served alongside Thrakari forces. In every case, the critical victories came at moments when human commanders had made decisions that violated standard military doctrine. Humans would split their forces when logic demanded concentration, attack when prudence called for retreat, or show mercy when efficiency required destruction. Somehow, these impossible choices had always worked. The philosophical implications struck the Zentari collective the hardest. Their entire civilization was built on the pursuit of perfect logical reasoning. For 3 centuries, they had included human researchers in their most advanced projects. Initially, out of politeness to their council allies. Now, Dr. Netheri stared at 27 different research projects that had ground to a complete halt. Each one had reached a point where pure logic failed to provide a solution. The Zentari researchers had always turned to their human colleagues at these moments, expecting the humans to eventually work out the logical answer they had missed. We kept records of every human contribution, Dr. Netheri told her research team. I thought we could analyze their methods and continue without them. But look at this data. The display showed hundreds of breakthrough moments, where human researchers had made intuitive leaps that solved seemingly impossible problems. Dr. Sarah Chun had resolved the quantum consciousness paradox by suggesting that awareness might exist in the spaces between thoughts rather than in thoughts themselves. Professor James Wright had unlocked faster-than-light communication by proposing that information could travel backwards through time to arrive exactly when it was sent. These solutions make no logical sense, Dr. Nethery continued. Yet they work. Our most advanced experiments function because of principles that violate our understanding of causality, physics, and reason itself. Her assistant, a young Xanthari named Kroltos, raised a hesitant objection. Perhaps the humans were simply more advanced than we realized. Maybe their technology allowed them to see solutions we could not. Dr. Nethery shook her head sadly. I reviewed their personal equipment. Standard Federation technology. Nothing we haven't seen before. The breakthrough came from something else. Something we apparently cannot replicate. The most disturbing reports came from the Outer Rim, where Void Wraith attacks had intensified exactly in the zones where human presence had disappeared. The timing was too precise to be coincidental. Commander Silex of Regalian Intelligence Corps studied the attack patterns with growing alarm. Every Void Wraith incursion occurred in systems where human ships or colonies had been withdrawn in the past week. Areas that had remained safe for decades were now falling into darkness. Pull up the historical data, Silex ordered his analysts. I want to see Void Wraith activity patterns for the past century. The results sent chills through his cybernetic spine. For 300 years, Void Wraith attacks had followed a clear pattern. They avoided any system with a significant human presence. Not human military forces, just presence. Trading posts, scientific research stations, even small human colonies seemed to create invisible barriers that the entities would not cross. Sir, his chief analyst reported, there are 17 star systems that have maintained human populations throughout our records. None of them have ever experienced a Void Wraith incursion. Not one. Silex stared at the data in growing horror. The galaxy had been protected by an invisible shield they had never known existed. Humanity hadn't just been allies in the fight against the Void Wraiths, they had been the only thing standing between civilization and complete annihilation. And now that shield was gone. Emergency sessions convened across the galaxy as the scope of the crisis became clear. The Galactic Council had built their entire civilization around human capabilities they had never understood or appreciated. Worse, the withdrawal had triggered a feeding frenzy among the Void Wraiths that threatened to consume every major population center within months. In his private chambers, Chancellor Zareth reviewed the catastrophic reports flowing in from every corner of Council space. Defense grids failing, trade routes collapsing, military formations in chaos, and an ancient enemy growing bolder by the hour. He had spent 3 centuries believing that humans were junior partners in galactic civilization. Now he was beginning to suspect that the reverse had always been true. The galaxy had been dependent on humanity in ways so fundamental that removing them was like pulling the foundation stones from beneath a vast cathedral. As he prepared to call another emergency session, Zareth wondered if it was already too late to repair the damage. Outside his windows, the first Void Wraith scouts had been detected in the outer system, probing defenses that suddenly seemed as fragile as spiderwebs. The galaxy's golden age was ending, and the darkness was hungry. Commander Silex of Regalian Intelligence had broken more security codes and infiltrated more secret facilities than any operative in galactic history. But sneaking into the abandoned human research station orbiting Kepler 442b felt different. The empty corridors seemed to whisper with secrets that might save or damn them all. His team moved through the facility with practiced stealth. Dr. Vellani, the galaxy's leading expert on xenobiology, scanned every surface with her advanced sensors. Tech specialist Zorth hacked into data cores that the humans had left behind in their hasty withdrawal. The power systems are still active, Zorth reported. his metallic fingers dancing across alien interfaces. But the energy readings are impossible. The reactor should have failed months ago, but it's somehow drawing power from local space-time fluctuations. Vellani paused in a laboratory doorway, her sensor readings spiking wildly. "Commander, you need to see this. The quantum signature in here is unlike anything I've encountered." They entered a research lab that looked perfectly normal at first glance, standard equipment. Basic furniture, scattered notes on holographic displays. But Vellani's instruments screamed warnings about reality distortions that should have torn the room apart. "Look at these experimental records," she said, pulling up files from the abandoned computers. The humans were studying something they called probability cascade manipulation, according to their notes. They were trying to understand why human-operated equipment performed better than identical machines run by other species. Silex examined the data with growing amazement. The humans had documented thousands of cases where their mere presence had improved the performance of alien technology. Korthek weapons fired more accurately when human technicians maintained them. Synthari computers solved problems faster when humans worked nearby. Vesh bioships healed more quickly when human medics assisted their treatment. They thought they were just good with technology, Vellani continued. But look at these quantum field measurements. Human brain activity creates localized distortions in probability fields. They're unconsciously manipulating the fundamental structure of reality on a microscopic scale. Dr. Kess Vrillan materialized in the room through her species' natural teleportation ability. The galaxy's most renowned xenopsychologist had been analyzing human behavioral patterns for decades. But the recent crisis had driven her to desperate measures. "I've been studying archived footage from every human interaction with other species," she announced without preamble. "The patterns are consistent across all situations. Humans don't just adapt to alien environments. They somehow make those environments adapt to them." She activated a holographic display showing hundreds of examples. Human diplomats convincing warlike species to choose peace through arguments that should have failed. Human traders negotiating deals that benefited everyone involved, even when the math suggested zero-sum outcomes. Human soldiers surviving battles where casualties should have been absolute. Their decision-making processes violate every known model of rational behavior, Vrillan explained. Yet their success rate suggests an underlying logic we cannot perceive. "I believe humans access information that exists outside normal space-time." Zorth's excited chirping interrupted their analysis. He had cracked the deepest security protocols in the facility's main computer core. "Commander, I found classified research from the human government. Project designation: Mirror's Edge." The files that appeared on their displays changed everything they thought they knew about human origins. Deep space archaeology had revealed traces of an ancient cosmic event near Earth's solar system. Approximately 4 million years ago, multiple dimensional barriers had collapsed simultaneously, creating a brief overlap zone where several parallel universes intersected. The humans evolved during this intersection period. Vrillan read aloud, her voice filled with awe. Their entire species developed consciousness while reality itself was unstable. They're quantum-touched natural probability manipulators who can perceive and influence multiple potential timelines simultaneously. The implications hit Silex like a physical blow. That's why they make impossible decisions that somehow work. They're not guessing, they're seeing alternate outcomes and choosing the path that leads to success. But the files contained an even more shocking revelation. The Void Wraiths weren't random entities from dark space. They were antibodies from a higher dimensional realm, triggered into action when lower dimensional civilizations became too ordered, too predictable, too stable. Every galactic civilization follows the same path, Vellani read from the research notes. They develop technology, establish order, optimize their systems, and eliminate chaos from their societies. When they reach a certain threshold of predictability, they become visible to the wraiths as a cancer that needs to be removed. The reason became clear as they studied dimensional physics data that human scientists had compiled over centuries. Reality existed in layers, with higher dimensions observing and maintaining stability in lower ones. Civilizations that eliminated all randomness and uncertainty created rigid patterns that disrupted the natural flow of cosmic probability. The void wraiths are cosmic immune responses, Silex realized. They consume civilizations that have become too perfect, too logical, too predictable. They're trying to restore balance to reality itself. Vrillon accessed another file that explained humanity's unique role in galactic civilization. Humans don't just manipulate probability, they generate quantum uncertainty. Their presence creates chaos in local reality fields, making nearby areas invisible to higher dimensional observation. They've been acting as a shield, hiding our organized civilizations from the Wraith's attention. The team stood in stunned silence as the full scope of the situation became clear. For 3 centuries, humanity had protected the galaxy not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but simply by existing among them. Human chaos had masked the predictable patterns of galactic civilization, keeping them hidden from entities that would otherwise consume them. Look at this timeline analysis, Zorth added, pulling up additional research data. The Wraith's attack patterns perfectly correlate with human population movements. They strike precisely where human uncertainty fields have been withdrawn. It's not coincidence, it's cause and effect. Dr. Vrillon activated her emergency communication protocols, broadcasting their findings to the council leadership. But even as she transmitted the critical information, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. "Commander," Valana's voice cracked with fear, "my sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions approaching this system. The quantum signature matches void wraith manifestations, but the scale is unprecedented." Through the facility's viewports, they could see space itself beginning to ripple and tear. Dark shapes moved between the stars, consuming light and matter as they approached. The wraiths had found another target, and this time they were coming in force. "We need to reach human space," Silex declared, gathering the critical research data. "If this information is correct, Earth is the only place in the galaxy where we might be safe from these entities." But as their ship prepared for immediate departure, a chilling thought occurred to Vrillon. The humans had withdrawn not just their ships and personnel, but their protection. Every civilized world in the galaxy was now visible to the wraiths, marked for consumption by their own success and efficiency. The galaxy's greatest achievement, its perfectly ordered civilization, had become its death. Sentence died as they fled through hyperspace toward human territory. The research station behind them simply ceased to exist. The void wraiths had arrived, and they were hungry for the taste of ordered reality. The hunt was beginning, and every predictable civilization in the galaxy was now prey. The only question remaining was whether humanity would be willing to save allies who had never understood the protection they had been providing. The quantum-touched children of chaos held the galaxy's fate in their probabilistically impossible hands. The great library of Zentari Prime had stood for 12,000 years, its crystalline spires reaching toward the stars like frozen lightning. The accumulated wisdom of 100 civilizations filled its quantum storage matrices, preserving knowledge that spanned geological ages. In the space of 6 hours, it all simply ceased to exist. Dr. Nethari watched from her escape pod as the void wraiths consumed her home world. The entities moved like living shadows between dimensions, their forms shifting and flowing as they devoured the ordered reality that the Zentari had spent millennia perfecting. The planet's surface dimpled and warped as space-time itself was digested, leaving behind nothing but empty coordinates and confused gravitational fields. She was among the few survivors, and only because she had abandoned all logical thinking and followed a desperate human-inspired intuition to flee before any threat was detected. A rigidly logical species had been too perfect, too predictable. The Wraiths had found them irresistible. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out with horrifying regularity. The Magellan Collective's thousand-year-old Dyson spheres were dismantled piece by piece, their perfect energy collection systems unraveling as the Wraiths fed on the mathematical precision of their construction. The gas giant cities of the floater nations vanished overnight, their delicate orbital mechanics disrupted by entities that existed partially outside normal physics. The Altarian defense grid, pride of the Republic's engineering corps, lasted exactly 17 minutes against a Wraith incursion. The automated systems that had protected core worlds for centuries fired uselessly at targets that existed in too many dimensions to hit consistently. When the stations tried to coordinate their response using logical tactical algorithms, they became even more visible to the entities they were fighting. Chancellor Zerith received reports of devastation from across Council space. Every major civilization was under attack, their most advanced and organized territories targeted first. The Void Wraiths seemed drawn to perfection like predators following the scent of blood. 18 core worlds lost in the past week, Admiral Korth Axe reported, her usually steady voice cracking with strain. The entities are moving faster than our evacuation fleets. They appear to anticipate our logical escape routes and position themselves accordingly. The few survivors brought consistent reports that defied military understanding. The Wraiths ignored random targets passed by primitive settlements and showed no interest in chaotic or disorganized areas. They hunted organized civilization with surgical precision, consuming order itself rather than just matter and energy. "We must reach Earth," Zereth declared to his emergency council. "Commander Silex's research proves that humanity is our only hope. We will offer them anything leadership of the entire galactic government. Unlimited resources, territorial concessions, spanning whole spiral arms. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford." The largest diplomatic fleet in galactic history assembled in the Rigelian system. 700 ships carrying the most prestigious ambassadors, military leaders, and scientists from every surviving civilization. They came bearing treasures that represented the accumulated wealth of thousands of worlds, prepared to surrender their sovereignty in exchange for survival. As the fleet approached the boundary of human space, sensors detected an anomaly that none of them had expected. The entire solar system was surrounded by a subtle barrier of quantum distortion, barely detectable, but unmistakably present. Space itself seemed different here, more fluid and unpredictable. "Sir," reported the fleet's chief navigator, "our navigation computers are malfunctioning. They keep suggesting course corrections that violate standard safety protocols. The systems are recommending paths through asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies that should destroy our ships." Admiral Korth Axe studied the readings with growing confusion. "Follow the computer recommendations," she ordered. "If humanity's protection extends to their space, perhaps their chaos extends to our systems while we're here." The fleet followed navigation paths that made no logical sense, threading between asteroids that should have collided with them, riding gravitational waves that shouldn't have provided the accelerations their computers calculated. Somehow, every impossible maneuver worked perfectly. As they approached Earth's moon, they could see the blue-green world spinning peacefully in its orbit. Cities glowed on the night side, orbital installations moved in regular patterns, and communication networks carried the ordinary chatter of a civilization going about its daily business. Humanity seemed completely unaware of the galactic apocalypse raging beyond their borders. "This is impossible," muttered Dr. Vellani as she studied sensor readings of the human home world. Our long-range scanners show void wraith activity less than 50 light-years from here. The entities should have consumed this system first, given humanity's role as a threat to their goals. The truth became apparent as their ships crossed into Earth's inner system. Every vessel in the diplomatic fleet began experiencing beneficial malfunctions. Engines ran more efficiently than their specifications allowed. Life support systems somehow provided better air quality than they were designed to produce. Weapons that had been powered down for the diplomatic mission began randomly optimizing their targeting systems. The quantum uncertainty field, Dr. Casverlin realized. It's not just protecting humans from the wraiths. It's protecting us too, but the effect is spreading to our technology. Our ships are being infected with human-style probability manipulation. Ambassador Veltar of the Overmind Coalition sent a broad telepathic communication toward Earth, carrying the desperate plea of nearly 1,000 species. The response came not from government channels, but from a simple human, farmer working in fields outside Denver. "We know you're there," the farmer's voice carried, clearly across communication systems that shouldn't have been able to receive his transmission. "Ambassador Vasquez will meet you at Luna Station in 6 hours. Come alone, no weapons, no guards, no recording devices. Just 3 representatives." The diplomatic fleet waited in Earth's outer system while Chancellor Zareth, Admiral Korthax, and Dr. Vrillin took a small shuttle to the human moonbase. Luna Station looked exactly as it had during normal diplomatic visits, small, functional, and utterly unremarkable compared to the massive installations other species built. Elena Vasquez met them in the same simple conference room where routine trade negotiations had taken place for decades. She looked exactly the same as she had during the council withdrawal, calm, professional, and somehow completely in control of a situation that should have been beyond anyone's ability to manage. "Chancellor," she said simply, "you understand now." Zareth's forearms trembled as he struggled to maintain diplomatic composure. "Ambassador, our civilizations are dying. We offer you everything leadership of the galaxy, unlimited resources, complete autonomy for your species. We will serve as your subordinates if necessary. Please, you must help us." Elena's expression remained neutral. "You still don't understand what you're asking for." Admiral Korthax leaned forward desperately. "We know about your quantum abilities. We understand that humanity generates uncertainty fields that hide organized civilizations from the void wraiths. We're begging you to restore that protection." "The protection was never something we gave you," Elena replied quietly. "It was something you took from us. For 3 centuries, you've used our presence to shield your perfect civilizations while never acknowledging what that cost us." Dr. Vrillin's sensors detected emotional distress in the human ambassador despite her calm exterior. "What cost?" "We don't understand." Elena activated a holographic display showing Earth's historical development. "Look at our technological advancement curve compared to other species. We should have developed faster than light travel 200 years before we met you. We should have had matter conversion technology, dimensional manipulation, consciousness transfer abilities. The data was undeniable. Humanity's development had been artificially slowed. Their chaos deliberately maintained at levels that provided optimal galactic protection. Every time we came close to developing true order in our civilization, problems arose," Elena continued. "Wars, natural disasters, political upheavals that forced us to remain chaotic and unpredictable. We thought it was bad luck. We thought we were naturally prone to disorder." Chancellor Zareth felt his throat sacs contract with horror. "You're saying we subconsciously sabotaged your development?" "Not sabotaged," Elena corrected. "Preserved. Your species' survival instincts recognized the threat posed by human advancement and manipulated events to keep us at the optimal level of chaos. We've been cosmic guard dogs, maintained at precisely the level of unpredictability needed to keep you all safe. The silence in the room was broken only by the soft humming of Luna Station's life support systems, which somehow seemed to be working at impossible efficiency levels. But now, Elena said, standing to conclude the meeting, it's time for that to change. Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, looking out at the diplomatic fleet hanging in Earth's outer system. Behind her, Chancellor Zareth waited with the patience of someone whose entire civilization depended on the next few words spoken. We've known about our nature for 50 years, Elena said without turning around. Project Mirror's Edge wasn't the first human research into quantum consciousness. It was just the first one you discovered. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's secret development over the past half-century, hidden beneath the surface chaos that kept them safely unpredictable. Humanity had been building technologies that worked on entirely different principles than galactic standard, while your species pursued perfect efficiency. We learned to weaponize controlled randomness, Elena explained. Every human ship now carries quantum uncertainty generators. Every colony has probability manipulation centers. We've turned our greatest weakness into our greatest strength. Admiral Korthax studied the display with growing amazement. Human technology looked primitive compared to galactic standards, but the energy readings were impossible. Ships that should barely achieve light speed were somehow capable of instantaneous travel. Weapons that appeared to be simple projectile launchers were generating reality distortions that could unmake matter at the subatomic low. You could have saved the galaxy at any time, Dr. Vrillon realized. Why did you let billions die? Elena finally turned to face them, and for the first time, her neutral expression cracked to show the weight she had been carrying. Because you needed to learn that survival sometimes requires controlled chaos, she said. Your civilizations have spent millennia eliminating uncertainty, randomness, and unpredictability from your societies. You created perfect systems that made you sitting ducks for any force that feeds on order. Chancellor Zareth's forearms spread in a gesture of desperate supplication. What do you want from us? What are your terms? Partnership, Elena said simply. Not subordination, not domination. True partnership between order and chaos. Your logical minds provide the foundation. Our chaotic nature provides the protection. But this time, it has to be conscious and voluntary on both sides. She gestured for them to sit as she outlined humanity's proposal. The Galactic Council would be restructured as a true alliance of equals, with human representatives holding 50% voting power despite being less than 1% of the galactic population. Every major project, every military operation, every significant decision would require both logical approval from traditional species and chaotic approval from human advisors. More importantly, Elena continued, every member species must agree to introduce controlled randomness into their societies. Not enough to cripple your efficiency, but enough to keep you hidden from higher dimensional predators. Dr. Vrillon's sensor reading spiked as she realized the implications. You're asking us to deliberately introduce irrationality into our most important systems. I'm asking you to learn that perfect systems are perfectly vulnerable, Elena corrected. The Void Wraiths hunt civilizations that have become too predictable. We need to teach you how to be strategically unpredictable. Chancellor Zareth felt his species' natural desire for order recoil against the concept, but the images of consumed worlds overrode his instincts. What would this partnership look like in practice? Elena activated another display showing proposed joint operations. Human crews would be integrated into every major galactic institution, not as consultants but as equal partners whose chaotic input was protected and encouraged. Scientific research would deliberately incorporate human intuition alongside alien logic. Military forces would blend careful planning with spontaneous adaptation. The goal is balance, Elena explained. Your species provide the intelligence and resources needed for galactic civilization. Humanity provides the uncertainty and adaptability needed for galactic survival. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout Luna Station. The Void Wraiths had arrived in Earth's outer system, drawn by the massive concentration of organized fleet formations. Through the station's viewports, they could see space beginning to ripple and tear as the entities manifested. Perfect timing, Elena said with a slight smile. Time for the first joint operation. What followed challenged everything the galactic species thought they knew about military tactics. Instead of organizing their forces into logical formations, Admiral Korthax found herself following suggestions from human officers that made no strategic sense. Commander Sarah Chun, who had served as a technical advisor on dozens of alien ships, took operational control of a mixed fleet that included vessels from 47 different species. Her first order was to scatter the formation randomly across three-dimensional space with no apparent tactical purpose. This violates every principle of fleet coordination. Admiral Korthax protested through the communication network. Good, Chun replied cheerfully. Principles are predictable. Predictable gets us eaten. As the Void Wraiths moved to attack the scattered ships, something impossible happened. Vessels that should have been isolated and vulnerable began supporting each other through probability cascades that Chun somehow orchestrated in real time. A Korthak battleship's weapons mysteriously gained perfect accuracy when a human engineer started humming an Earthfolk song. Synthari computers began solving tactical problems faster when their human operator began making illogical decisions based on gut feelings. Dr. Kesvrillan watched from her sensor. Station as quantum uncertainty. Field spread through the mixed fleet formations. The Void Wraiths, adapted to hunting predictable targets, found themselves unable to lock onto enemies that kept changing their fundamental nature from moment to moment. The entities are losing cohesion, she reported in amazement. They're designed to consume ordered reality, but our ships are becoming too chaotic for them to properly digest. The battle that followed resembled nothing in military history textbooks. Human officers made tactical decisions that violated physics, only to have alien technology somehow adapt to make the impossible work. Synthari philosophers found themselves embracing paradox and discovering that illogical conclusions sometimes revealed deeper strategic truths. Korthak warriors learned to trust intuition over analysis, achieving victories that their greatest military minds couldn't explain. Most remarkably, the Void Wraiths began retreating. Faced with a galaxy that had learned to embrace controlled chaos, the entities found their prey transforming into something they couldn't consume. Order remained, but it was seasoned with enough randomness to become invisible to higher dimensional hunting instincts. They're withdrawing to darker dimensions, Dr. Vrillan announced as the last Wraith signatures faded from sensors. The quantum uncertainty we're generating makes this reality unsuitable for their feeding patterns. In the aftermath of the battle, representatives from dozens of species found themselves changed in fundamental ways. Rigelian engineers discovered that occasionally ignoring safety protocols led to breakthrough innovations. Altarian diplomats learned that emotional decisions sometimes achieved better outcomes than logical negotiations. Even the proud Thrakari warriors admitted that chaos-trained human sergeants had made them more effective fighters. Chancellor Zareth stood in Luna Station's conference room, looking out at a mixed fleet where order and chaos had learned to dance together. "This is going to be difficult for my people to accept," he admitted. "We've spent millennia believing that perfect order was the highest goal of civilization." Elena joined him at the viewport, watching as human and alien crews worked together to repair battle damage using techniques that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. "Perfect order is death," she said gently. "Perfect chaos is also death." Life exists in the balance between them. Your species provide the structure that makes civilization possible. Humanity provides the uncertainty that makes civilization survivable. The treaty signed that day restructured galactic civilization along entirely new principles. The Council became the Alliance, with humanity holding equal partnership despite their tiny population. Every major institution was required to maintain what became known as chaos quotients specific percentages of deliberately unpredictable elements that kept them hidden from higher dimensional predators. More importantly, member species began learning to appreciate controlled randomness as a survival trait rather than a flaw to be corrected. Young Xanthari studied human poetry to understand how illogical beauty could reveal mathematical truths. Korthak military academies hired human instructors to teach the strategic value of unpredictable tactics. Altarian engineers discovered that systems with built-in randomness were often more robust than their perfectly designed counterparts. The galaxy entered a new age where chaos and order were recognized as equally vital forces. Ancient enemies found common ground in their shared need for balanced unpredictability. Scientific breakthroughs came from combining alien logic with human intuition. Art and culture flourished as species learned to appreciate forms of beauty that couldn't be quantified or optimized. Most importantly, the Void Wraith stayed away, faced with a galaxy that had learned to be deliberately inconsistent. The entities retreated to dimensions where prey remained predictably consumable.